Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming along. It's great to be back in a room together, isn't it? As Drew says, I'm Glenn Baker, part of the Charles Stanley team. And we're very proud to sponsor this evening. I probably should say a little bit about who Charles Stanley are and what we do. We're wealth managers, so we do financial planning as well as investment management across a whole range of clients. As it applies to businesses, we look after startups, as well as established businesses, as well as businesses that are reaching maturation, and be that where they're looking to go to the next generation, for example. We have 23 offices all across the UK, but we've been in Exeter for 15 years, so we're no strangers locally. It's a great pleasure to introduce Adrian. I've got some notes here, which I'll just read out. So Adrian, on his Amazon page, is described as passionate about freedom, choice and expression to operate without constraint. And he is committed to creating that freedom for everybody that he interacts with. He's a best-selling author, and he focuses on organisational design, and he will be telling us a lot more about that now.
So thank you, Drew, and thank you, Charles Stanley and the Exeter Magazine for organising tonight's event. As everyone now knows, my name's Adrian Brown. It's quite interesting to suddenly go, people go, oh, hello, Adrian. I was going, how do they know me? Of course, I had the photograph out there. Anyway, right. So Drew said, talk about sustainable profit and performance. And I thought, that's a good idea. Everyone wants that, don't we? We all want that in our business. It would be great to have sustainable profit and performance. Yes. But are you prepared to do what it takes to get it? And that's not a trick question. Because if you want something to be sustainable, especially in the world we live in today, then you have to be prepared to continuously change. And I was talking to people earlier, do you like change? We like to be comfortable. And we need to have this continuous change if we're going to have anything that's sustainable in business today. But there's a big problem. And the big problem is that most people do not know how to create change successfully. They don't know how to make it work. And this evening, I'm hoping I'm going to give you an insight into how you can make that work in your organisation. And I promise you, it's not scary and it's not horrible. It's actually quite easy to do. So when people think about change, whether it's changing the performance of your business or changing the market of your business or changing the direction, the big idea comes from the top and it's pushed down into the organisation. And it gets to the point of buy-in, i.e. it gets to the point of all the people who agree that it's a good idea to change, and then there's all the other buggers underneath who don't really necessarily think that's a good idea, and it meets that resistance. And that's what happens with change all the time. If you're a passionate owner, I was talking to Ben earlier, you've got a passionate owner in a small company, you can get away with it for a while. But as soon as your company starts to scale, and you start to see some structures and organisational structures appearing in your organisation, that's when the challenges start, because suddenly you've got stuff in your organisation that has to change, and people like to hold on to stuff. If you get to that point, that's when you have to start removing obstacles in your business. Now, obstacles are funny old things, because obstacles can be from the outside, or can they be from the inside? The last couple of years, we've had rather a lot of obstacles come at us from the outside. We've had Brexit, we've had the pandemic, we've had a war in Ukraine, we then had a financial crisis, and then a certain Prime Minister decided to put oil on that and gave us a political crisis. So there's been a lot of change thrown at all of your organisations. How much of you have really struggled with change from the outside in the last year and a bit? Yeah? It's all happening, right? However, those are all external obstacles thrown at you. The really challenging obstacles are the ones that happen inside your business, the ones that are a little bit harder to find. Now, our experience of working with companies, we would say there's probably 4 core internal obstacles that recur again and again and again. And the first one, I've mentioned already, is this idea that people actually don't know how to change successfully. They want to change, but they don't know how to bring it about. The other thing that's interesting is we all have a language that we use in our business every day. That language is very powerful in controlling how the business operates. And we don't have the language for change. We don't know how to speak about change. People think about change is going to come from above. Well, historically, that's where it has come from. They need to have authority to change. But actually, change happens where you are. Change is a very local thing. So actually, change is going to be happening where you are. You don't need somebody to tell you about it. You've got to be ready for it where you are. And interestingly, when clients understand that, what they then want is us to do the work for them. They want us to do the change. That doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Change is something that has to happen within the organisation. And the interesting thing is when they've started to get these ideas through their head and they realise all these things are happening, what they realise we're doing is we're creating a platform on which they can start to build change successfully in their organisation. And I'll talk a little bit about that platform. And then there's this weird thing called culture. How many of you got a culture in your company? Did you create it? Probably not. If you did, please come and tell me how. Culture is emergent. Culture comes out of the conditions that exist in your organisation. The conditions that you have in your organisation are fixed because you don't know how to change them. So the culture tends to be fixed. And people want to change culture, but you can't because it's a result, it's an outcome. And once you've got a result, you can't change it. And people think that, okay, culture, what does that do for my business? Well, culture determines how your people behave with themselves, with each other, with your customers, and it also determines their relationship to their work, to the business, to the whole infrastructure you have. Now, if you need a new culture to change your performance, people think, got it, I'll change my culture and I'll get a new performance. But you can't do that. You've got this result. It's a thing that happens from something else. So what you have to do is you have to change the conditions. But what conditions do you change? What conditions in your business have given you the culture that you've got today? Bit of a question, that. So the existing conditions have given you this culture, and this culture has given you this performance and these obstacles, and now you want to change the performance, so I've got to go back and change the conditions, but which conditions do I change? This now comes into the area, my area, called organisational design. Now when I look at an organisation, and I'm thinking about organisation design, I think about 4 pillars, and this is true for every organisation. Finance, ethics, strategy, and people. Every organisation, those are the 4 pillars that control your organisation. Interestingly though, leadership defines the strategy. Leadership defines the financial goals. Leadership might define the ethics. Leadership will have a say in what's going to happen with the people. So you could say that leadership actually defined the culture, and that's true. The leadership of an organisation, unbeknown to them, are responsible for the culture of that organisation. Take you away from business for a second. Let's look at the game of tennis. Who plays tennis? We all play tennis, right? Now in tennis, you have lines, a net, a bat and a ball, or sorry, racket and a ball. I'm not a tennis player. And you have some ethical rules about what you should do and how you should behave and how you should dress. And then there's the game rules, how you play the game. You know, serve it in here, this is in, that's out, all that stuff. Well, the 4 pillars in business are the lines and the net, the rules and the ethics for your company. They define the rules of the game for your business. Sometimes in business, or not just business in life, one of those 4 pillars gets primacy over the rest. It's usually finance. So what happens when finance is more important than ethics? Can anyone think of a company where that might have happened?
You get a bit of mis-selling going on.
You know, what happens when when finance gets ahead of strategy? What happens when finance gets ahead of people? There's another rounds of redundancies being announced today from different companies. When you focus on all 4 conditions evenly, and I mean evenly, they're all given the same weight, then you start to identify the necessary conditions in your organisation that you need to adjust to get the resulting culture you need to have. And leadership is key. It's all down to leadership. But I'm not talking about the leader. That'd be a bit too much to have on their shoulders, because you have leadership happening throughout your organisation. I'm talking about the function of leadership. And I was saying to Ben earlier that in large organisations, we work with small teams. In small teams, we work with small teams. You can't transform big organisations. It just doesn't work. You can't have enough energy to push it down fast enough and quick enough. You have to start with small teams. And to do that, there's a couple of things you need. You need to be really clear, the leadership, need to be really clear about what they stand for, what the vision is, what the purpose of the company is. They've got to be able to communicate effectively to everyone in the organisation what it's about, what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve. Because if they can't do that, people don't understand. And guess what? When people don't understand, they make it up on their own. And when they make it up on their own, they become a resistance to change. The leaders have to live by the rules. They've really got to do that. But they've also got to demand that everyone else lives by the rules too. And if they don't, they've got to hold them to account. Because if you let people just start playing loose with the rules, your culture is going to disappear in seconds. And a leader must go first. A leader has to show the way so that people can follow. The process of leading is from the front. I know people talk about leading from the back. Yeah, you can lead from the back, but you've got to show the way. So where do you start? Well, as I said, most large change efforts fail. McKinsey's quote, I think about 98% of change efforts fail, and they're a change organisation. Weird. But anyway, where do you start? Well, you start small. You start with a small team, and you give that team a real clear focus, a project. When we work with large organisations, we'll break it down into small project teams, and we'll pick 3 or 4 teams to work with to start with. In those small teams, you can create communication structures, ways of operating, new systems and processes really quickly. Not very expensively either. And if it doesn't quite work, because it's a small team, you can see everyone, you can fix it, you can change it until it works. And then when you've got something that works, you can share it in the organisation. You can experiment without disrupting everybody. And when you've got that proof of concept, you can move forward. You know, grandiose change programs, we're going to change the organisation. It sounds great. It's a great ego boost for the leadership. But they just don't work because there's just not enough energy in the organisation to make it work. So when you start small, you start creating these new cultures, little new cultures in the organisation. You do it one team at a time, and then you repeat, and then you repeat again. And suddenly you've got this momentum happening where people are going, what are they doing over there in logistics? It looks really rather fun. You know, they're having a good time. Or what are they doing over in sales? What are they doing in marketing? Or it might be a project group. Sustainable change sounds like hard work sometimes. Like it's going to be long hours. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a drudgery. But actually, sustainable change comes from motivated, engaged, inspired, challenged people that see the reason they're doing it and want to move forward. Instead of having this big transformation, which is a struggle and is going to fail, you end up with some transformative process. I call it a transformative flow that literally flows through the organisation. And you start to create an environment of consistent change because people suddenly realise, oh, we can do this together. We can do this together in a small group, and we can do it again and again and again. What happens is you create a culture that is so powerful that the values are so clear that when there is a breach of those values, when they're broken, instead of them being swept under the carpet or somebody trying to spin it, people put their hand up and say, got that wrong, and they immediately want to repair it and fix it and recover from it because that's the way they're going to do it. That's the culture you've built. You get those 4 pillars aligned in a company and you started a new way of working. A new way of working that makes work a worthwhile experience for everyone in the organisation. How many of your employees don't desperately want to come to work every day? I mean desperately want to come to work. Wouldn't that be great if all your employees desperately wanted to come to work every day? Not to be overworked, not to be there till midnight, but to come and do their job and know that they were valued. Transformative organisations is how you produce sustainable profit and performance. Because transformation becomes a way of working, a way of living, a way of being for every person in that organisation. It actually isn't now a challenge and hardship, it's this is how we do things around here. And people are proud of it. In our work, we work with leaders who have got a commitment, who see something they want to change in the world or their business. They see something they want to go for, that they stand for. And they're committed to see it through, and that's really important. There's a lot of people start change programs and they're not committed. And then it sort of gets a bit hard and a bit difficult, and they stop. We work with human organisations. Human organisations are the most powerful thing we have on this planet. Human organisations built the pyramids. Human organisation did Stonehenge. We still haven't figured out how they did that, right? That's what human organisations can do. What we do is we work with organisations to release that energy and that creativity in service of a clear, focused goal. And what we're trying to do as our goal, my business partner and I, he's in Vancouver, I'm here, is to create a new form of organisation. An organisation that truly values human endeavour, every human endeavour, from the top to the bottom, where work is a worthwhile experience for all. Now, my book has been kindly mentioned, so I'll plug it again. It's on Amazon. It's called The Power of Organisation. And in that, we actually start trying to help you understand the process of starting to create a transformative organisation. And our second book, press release, The Power of Management, is going to be out before Christmas. It's a bit delayed because I've had a few cardiac issues over the summer, so I had to delay things a little bit. But that's going to be out before Christmas. Again, published by Bite Size Books. Again, it will be available on Amazon. And in that book, we're going to start getting into the detail how you actually build a working environment which really engages everybody and makes that work a worthwhile experience for all. Thank you very much.